Welcome into the garage area. This is our Darlington Southern 500 recap show, and NASCAR is back. Racing is back. We actually had some good, solid, old-school NASCAR racing this week. Exactly what I was looking for in any cup race, and to go back to a track like Darlington and have a race that good and have it be a cutoff race on top of that, everything was great. The only thing, if I were going to complain about something, would be the fact that Kyle Busch said he couldn't quite get through the arrow wake of the 14 car to get to him. Yeah. I can live with that. I can make that trade for what we got here. Just great racing all the way around. Couldn't have been happier with it. A lot of playoff drama. A lot of guys that possibly should have made it that didn't make it. We had another new winner for the cutoff race. Just a lot of stuff going on around that race itself. Starting right off the bat, Bubba Wallace qualifies on the pole, and a car that needs to really run well in order to get in, probably win the race, but if not, have a really, really strong run, and it looked like he was going to have that opportunity. Like I said, started on the pole, he led 37 laps, he ran up near the front all night, earned stage points, but ended up getting caught up in somebody else's mess, as has typically been their situation all year long. He ends up finishing 16th, and is going to miss the playoffs. This was our fourth and final crown jewel event of the year. Who won the first three?
Byron.
Being the Daytona 500.
Christopher Bell.
Coke 600. He kind of won it.
Yeah. And Larson.
Won the Indy 500, or the Brickyard 400. Did not win the Indy 500. And now we have Chase Briscoe winning the Southern 500. The only other honorary one that we're going to have this year is going to be the Bristol Night Race here in a couple weeks. Looking forward to that as well. Martin Truex Jr., he was another big storyline because right off the bat, lap 3, he ends up crashing due to something that seemed to be well within his control. He just went into the corner a little too hard, started to spin, tried to save himself, overcorrected, and wiped out himself and Ryan Blaney. They were out very early in this event after Blaney had a very fast car in practice. And Truex, I really thought that this was going to be one of his last really good shots to win this year. And probably, realistically, is his last shot to win this year, in my opinion. He was my pick for the actual race win this week. Obviously, that didn't go well at all. He ends up finishing second to last in 36th position. And obviously, you end up winning our picks this week with Denny Hamlin. But Martin Truex Jr., if I ever say in our chat that's who I'm picking this week, just say, no, you can't. You got to pick somebody else, because I'm not picking him to win anything else the rest of the year. Even if I have some confidence that Martin might run well at a certain racetrack down the line, I'm not picking him to win because he just never does. And I'm out. I'm out on the 19 car. I think that they are fast. I think they're going to make it out of the first round in the playoffs, but I do not think that they're going to do anything worth competing for a championship or a win. So, Tyler Reddick, two big storylines with him after Darlington. One being he is the regular season champion by 1 point over Kyle Larson. And he was trying very hard all night not to earn Darlington stripes inside the race car, as he had a upset stomach that possibly saying that he was battling things in the car that could cause him to actually either mess himself or throw up all over himself. And reports came out at certain times that did happen, but it doesn't sound like it actually did. Yeah. So I was a little disappointed at that. I really wanted to see him get out in an absolute mess of bodily fluid, but he did not. And actually gutted out a very good performance for his team and ends up winning them the regular season title. So kind of a balance at both ends of the spectrum for 23-11. I got Tyler Reddick, who has won 2 races this year.
Yeah.
2 races this year, is the regular season champion, and Bubba Wallace, who has run pretty well but just has got caught up in a lot of bad luck and ends up missing the playoffs altogether. Really had clean racing for most of the night. Everything seemed to be playing out as you would expect. There was anything boring about it, in my opinion. It just seemed like guys were racing hard. You had people able to make passes. Guys could get runs on guys. Tires wore out. That's a huge factor. The green flag pit stops were intriguing as far as guys had to hit their marks well on pit road. The crew had to give them a good stop, and you saw the gap grow or shrink depending on how good the pit stop was, how good the driver was on pit road, which is something you see every week, but it just seemed like it was so much more critical here at Darlington. And
also in the timing, how many laps you stayed out or
Yeah.
come in early or not, and how that played out at the end of a run.
Very true.
For example, Denny Hamlin staying out long and making it up on the.
And wasn't Chase Elliott on that strategy there for a little while as well?
Yeah.
I don't know if he stuck with that strategy or not, but I know that he started to be on it.
I think he stayed on it, but he didn't have the car Denny did to make it work out.
And also shorter runs due to the tire wear, I think was a big factor in that as well. You didn't have, guys going 50, 60, 70 laps on green flag runs trying to just get their next fuel stop. You actually had to stop to change tires due to the abrasive nature of the racetrack. Like we said, pit strategies played out kind of like you would expect, and guys tried to gain an advantage on tires depending on how they ran and all that, like you just said. Larson dominated the race, leading 263 laps, won both stages, but he still ends up coming up short and finishing fourth. Did you think that this was Larson's race to lose most of the night?
Yeah.
And were you a little surprised that he got passed as easily as he did? Because he was still leading up to that final restart, right? I'm pretty sure Briscoe took him 3 wide into turn 3, and that's how he got by.
Well, Chastain stayed out that one time. I thought that gave Briscoe the lead at that point because Briscoe passed Larson there.
So I thought, if I remember this correctly, yes, Chastain stayed out, and he got ahead of Larson, and as Larson was running him back down, Briscoe made it 3 wide and kind of pinned him behind the one car to pass him.
Yeah.
That was, but long story short, Larson was still out front of the cars contending for a win that had pitted.
Yeah.
It was just Chastain that had stayed out and left him in the front of the field. So, I really thought even to that point that it was Larson's race to lose until the 14 just sent it in there. And
I didn't expect Chastain to get the restart he got.
No, he restarted a lot better than I thought he would too. As soon as I saw him stay out, I was like, well, he has to stay out because that's really his only shot is to just, catch another caution and pit and have the track position at that point.
And that actually kind of did work out for him.
It did.
I think he was like 4th or 5th when the caution came out. Next one, where I don't remember what happened at this point because a lot of things happened in their team.
Yeah, I don't know if that was when Carson Hocevar wrecked that last time or what the deal was.
That's possible.
But, it just seemed like it's kind of the epitome of the 5 season, in my opinion, is they have a ton of races where they've run really well, they've led a lot of laps, they've won stages, and then they just didn't win the race.
Yeah.
And still finished well, but just didn't win the race. That's why he was in the position he was in after being literally not suspended, but not competing in a race, being the Coke 600, and still falling within 1 point of the regular season championship. Like, he's had a great year from a points perspective, just not finishing out the races with wins.
It's kind of ironic. If he just starts the Coca-Cola 600, he's guaranteed 1 point.
Yeah.
So I was just thinking about that the other day. I'm like,
The discussion was brought up on the teardown this week that do you think that he regrets starting the Indy 500 in order to miss this Coca-Cola 600, which ultimately cost him the regular season championship? And Jeff Gluck said, of course not.
Yeah.
Like, they had a lot of other opportunities to make up that 1 point versus missing that one race, and they've choked away a lot of situations in order to gain 1 point. So I don't think the Indy 500 is really a factor in his success of this season. In fact, I'd say he's had a very successful season to this point.
I mean, that's one that's been out at Michigan. I mean,
right.
That's.
Yeah. And I saw a graphic today looking at all the other drivers that he cost playoff spots.
Yeah, I remember seeing something about that.
Chris Buescher banging doors with him in Kansas for the closest finish in NASCAR history.
Yeah.
The spin at Michigan took out Kyle Busch.
And Bubba.
And Bubba, yeah. And then there was another restart where I can't remember if he ran out of fuel or if he spun his tires real bad, but he backed up into Kyle Busch there too, who was on the second row.
Oh yeah, I don't remember that.
There was a lot of pictures that indicated the issues that the 5 had in the positions he'd cost playoff.
I think he ran out of fuel at Nashville.
Yeah, I think
they're
right.
The one Joey won?
Yeah, he won Nashville.
Yeah.
That's another thing, and we can get into this, but Joey Logano would be out of the playoffs without that Nashville win. He has not run anywhere close to be competitive. He would have been 15th in points, and Truex would have, with the different winners that we had minus Joey Logano, Truex would have still got in, and Logano would have been out. So he has not run well. I mean, he got a good finish in Darlington, but he ran 15th all race long.
Yeah.
But guys like Carson Hocevar, they qualified well, ran pretty decent throughout the race, spun on his own with about 60 to go and ended up crashing toward the end of the race. Chase Briscoe, the race winner, had a fast car all night, and he was running the 5 down to the point that I thought he was probably going to get there and maybe pass him when the 77 ended up wrecking and bringing out that other caution with 32 laps to go. Everyone did pit except Ross Chastain. We talked about that. He ends up finishing 5th because of that. And 24 laps to go was that big wreck with the 4, the 11, the 24 all going 3 wide.
Yeah.
Maybe it was the 54. I don't remember. But Josh Berry was in it. Denny Hamlin was in it. They went 3 wide. And that's what ultimately ends up taking out Bubba Wallace and costing him a shot at the playoffs.
That's
there.
The one where Josh Berry just shoved it into the hole that really wasn't there.
Yeah.
I saw the replay. I'm like, what was he thinking?
Well, my initial reaction was, what was Denny doing? And then when I saw it a second time, I was like, I think Barry made that 3 wide. But even Denny explained on his podcast that there was him and Ty Gibbs were racing each other, and things kind of closed up there, which created a 3 wide situation that Barry was trying to take advantage of. And that's really what started the wreck. So Jared asked him if Denny caused the wreck, and he said, I don't know. So it sounds like there's even still some consideration there. But I even thought after watching it the second time that it was Barry's fault.
Yeah.
So I don't know what the real story is there, but I'm going to put it on Josh Berry. Just trying to be aggressive at the end of the race, and understandably so. After a great restart, Briscoe and Kyle Busch, they ended up getting away from the field. Busch ends up running him down, but he just can't get there in time to get past him. As we said, that air wake was playing with him a little bit. Briscoe gets his 2nd career win, earns a spot in the playoffs. Tyler Reddick wins the regular season points championship by 1 point over Larson and gets his 10th place finish. So overall, I thought that was a really good race. I didn't check Jeff Gluck's poll to see what the fans were voting, but it had to have been high. I can't imagine anybody not liking that race. I thought it was great. The way it played out was phenomenal. Just the kind of racing that I'm looking for each and every week.
Another thing this is more about the broadcast. I love being in Kyle's car, watching him chase down Briscoe.
Yeah, that was great.
That was like, okay, I just felt like I'm in the car trying to run. I mean, if you're rooting for Kyle, because I was kind of rooting for Kyle at that point. It was kind of fun to sit in that car. Obviously, you have to go to the outside car for the last lap to get that view crossing the line. But
right.
That was I thought that was a pretty cool.
I don't know that I recognized that in the moment, but I'm sitting there in the onboard and the broadcast watching that gap shrink, and I think he was making his time up in 3 and 4, and then it would widen back out, and then he closed back up on it. You could tell he was gaining ground on the 14 and just wasn't quite going to get there. And actually had a couple opportunities where he got real close and then had to fall back a little bit after that. I agree that was great camera work by the broadcast. People complain about Fox, people complain about NBC, people complain about whoever that's broadcasting the race. Far and away, NBC's done a great job this year.
Yeah.
I don't know what you could complain about with them. I think that they've been just phenomenal with what they've done.
I know we didn't talk about it last week with Lee Diffie, but I like his broadcasting in the booth there.
Yeah, I agree.
It was a little bit, the accent, a lot of people say they hate it and stuff, but it was a little bit to get used to, but it's incredible to listen to him.
I forget about the accent. I just think he's really good at what he does as far as commenting on the race. Really appreciate his insight and the things that he has to say. No issues with that. Honestly, I think that, I miss Dale Jr. and the things that he brought to a broadcast.
Yeah.
But I would say that this is just as good as when he was there.
Yeah.
Now, maybe if Dale was there, that could be elevated another level yet, but I've got no complaints with what we got right now. Yeah. All right, so is there anything more you wanted to talk about the actual race itself?
I don't have much there.
I thought that, like I said, really good race, really appreciated it, wish that was the kind of racing we were seeing every week. Let's talk about the actual playoffs. So the drivers that made the playoffs. It's kind of ironic to me that Tyler Reddick wins the regular season champion, but he's not the points leader right now.
Yeah.
Because of the way that things reset and the bonus points earned for playoff points and all that. So this is the playoff order. Kyle Larson, Christopher Bell, Tyler Reddick, William Byron, Ryan Blaney, Denny Hamlin, Chase Elliott, Brad Keselowski, Joey Logano, Austin Cindric, Daniel Suarez, Harrison Burton, Chase Briscoe, Alex Bowman, Ty Gibbs, and Martin Truex Jr. So the guys that just missed it, Chris Buescher, Bubba Wallace, Ross Chastain, Kyle Busch. Do we have an issue with the fact that we have Harrison Burton, Chase Briscoe, who else? Austin Cindric, and Daniel Suarez in, and we're missing Kyle Busch, Ross Chastain, Bubba Wallace, and Chris Buescher.
Definitely with the 21, and 99 are the biggest to me. Now, Chase Briscoe, like I said, like after that race, he was technically 17th in points.
Right.
So that one doesn't hurt me as much as some of the other couple. Cindric, I'm not exactly sure where he was in points, but
I think he was around the 20s.
Yeah. So I mean, it does bug me a little bit from like 20th on or something that, I just, to me, it doesn't seem like it's very hard. You should be running in the top 20.
Yeah.
And of course, I feel like we got too many cars in the system as it is. So
I guess that's kind of, go ahead, sorry.
But, I mean, watching the race Sunday with having Kyle Busch and Chase Briscoe running each other or racing each other for a chance to make this playoff, I think really exemplified the race that was going on.
Yeah.
Kind of made it exciting, like who's going to make this final spot. So I can see the intrigue with this system and how it did make some excitement but the old school person in me just kind of is like, man, maybe this doesn't feel like they deserve to be there.
Yeah.
Also, so.
I think that the fact, to me, it was enough that Kyle Busch and Chase Briscoe have not won a race this year.
Yeah.
They both haven't won in a long time, and this is the Southern 500.
Yeah.
Like, there was enough interest there for me that I didn't need it to be worth a playoff spot also.
Yeah.
But that being said, I'm sure that does add some level to it for a lot of fans. But honestly, Kyle Busch, Ross Chastain, Bubba Wallace, Chris Buescher, Alex Bowman, Chase Briscoe, Harrison Burton, Daniel Suarez, Austin Cindric, none of those guys even have a shot at this championship.
Yeah.
Like, there's no way those guys end up winning this championship, and I'd even say make the Final Four. Like, them guys don't have a shot, in my opinion. So to me, it's kind of a horse apiece. Like, it doesn't really matter. And obviously it matters monetarily. It matters for the charter value. It matters for a lot of things like that. But as far as me as a fan thinking that, they could upset something here in the play, no. I don't think that there's any chance of that. One thing I did want to touch on about Chris Buescher, he and Todd Gilliland got into a little bit of it was a wreck because Gilliland wrecked. It looked like Gilliland kind of washed up into the 17 off the corner, and the 17 bounced off the wall, and then my initial reaction was he hooked him.
That's what I thought too.
And nobody's really talked about that, how it was a right hook.
Yeah, I've seen a couple of things about it on Twitter, but I just feel like it. I don't know why nobody said anything in the moment.
Yeah,
that's kind of fishy right there. I know they talked a little bit about it on Hamlin's podcast.
Okay.
They go. Jared was like, "Well, where's the SMT?"
Yeah.
And so, but.
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, you could make the argument, well, he bounced off the wall and hit him. And he was trying to save his car from bouncing off the wall and then turning, and he tried to just save himself and ended up wrecking the 38 in the process. I could see that, and I would have a hard time arguing with it a whole lot, but I'd sooner believe he's trying to battle his way into the playoffs. He just got fenced, and he's really upset and just hooked him.
That's what it looked like to me.
That was my initial reaction. I'm not accusing Chris Buescher of that. I'm just saying that that's what it looked like to me at first glance. Let's kind of go through these guys in the playoffs and see where do we think that they're going to net out? Where are they going to end up? The round of 16, that's where we're at right now. 4 drivers are going to be eliminated after the first 3 races. So do you have the schedule in front of you?
I do not.
Okay, that's okay. I know we go to Atlanta, we go to Bristol, and I think Watkins Glen.
Sounds right.
So I'm not sure if that's the right order, but I'm pretty sure those 3 tracks are in this round.
Yeah.
With that in mind, who do you think are the first 4 out?
I'm going to say Harrison Burton.
Yeah, I think that's for sure out.
Of course, I mean, him running good at Daytona could make and could give him a boost at Atlanta.
That's true.
Let's see. Watkins Glen, Daniel Suarez could finish up front. But
he could win the race.
Yeah. I haven't really seen him run well at Watkins Glen, like you would think for a road course guy. But I still would put him out. Cindric, I haven't really seen much out of him lately. Even Bowman. But also, I mean, so I think Ty Gibbs and Martin Truex Jr. can make the next round. I'd say probably I'm probably more Daniel Suarez, Bowman, Briscoe, and Burton out.
Okay, that's my exact same first 4 out.
Yeah.
Although it wouldn't shock me if one of those guys miraculously made it into the next round. Not saying that they'd win their way there, but I think you could have a surprise elimination in the first round and a surprise advance somewhere along the line. And I don't know what it would be. It just seems like that always happens in the playoffs where somebody gets fouled up when they shouldn't necessarily. So beyond that, if you move past the round of 16 into the round of 12, who are your next 4 out? I'll tell you mine. I think that you could see Brad Keselowski. I think you could see Chase Briscoe. I think you could see Truex. And I think you'd see Ty Gibbs all exit in the next round.
Yeah, I already kind of have Briscoe out in the first round, before I said. So, to me, when you just talked about Joey Logano, that win or whatever, is the only reason he was in the playoffs. And seeing he's only like top 15s at the best anymore, it seems like. So, Brad hasn't been running as well as they kind of were in the beginning of the year. So, I will say, we're eliminating the round of 12 to make the round of 8. So,
correct.
I could say Brad, Joey. Let's see, we got Gibbs and Martin down there. So, I gotta say Cindric's out.
Yep.
I'm gonna say Joey, Cindric, Gibbs, and man, Truex is a tough one for me because I'm almost leaving the top 8 as is. Let's see. Let's see. What did I have here? Gibbs, Joey, Cindric.
And you're debating on Martin.
Yeah. Between Martin and Brad, I guess it is. There's only a few points difference. I think Martin's better than Brad.
So you're saying Brad's out that round?
Yeah.
Okay. So then we come to the round of 8. So what we got left is Kyle Larson, Chris Buescher, Tyler Reddick, William Byron, Ryan Blaney, Denny Hamlin, Chase Elliott. That's only 7.
And then Martin Truex Jr. would be my 8.
And Joey Logano would be mine. So that's who I've got in the round of 8. I'm going to say in the round of 8, you're going to say goodbye to Logano. Byron. Boy, this is tough now. Logano, Byron, Blaney. And I think Reddick has either a crash or a bad pit stop somewhere that takes him out. So that would leave my final 4 being Kyle Larson, Christopher Bell, Denny Hamlin, and Chase Elliott.
Wow, that's so I'm just gonna kind of give my final 4.
Okay.
I have Kyle Larson, Tyler Reddick, and Denny Hamlin.
That's only 3.
Well, yeah, I'm getting there. The fourth one is kind of, I feel like Chase has been falling off a cliff lately. He ran terrible at Darlington. I mean, he got like an 11th place finish just because of the chaos that ensued at the end. He was lapped down and got it back somehow.
I hate to just throw this in there, but Jimmy Johnson used to run terrible before the playoffs started too. Chad put all the cheating stuff aside and then just rolled into the playoffs and loaded that car up when they got there.
Yeah. Let's see. And Blaney, I think, gets hot at those last few tracks.
But he's got to make it there.
I mean, if he's in, I have him in my top 8. So
yeah, I understand, but I feel like it's just the last several, 3 or 4 racetracks that he's good at.
Yeah. I mean, that's the ones that's got to get them to the Final Four. So I think I'm putting, Byron hasn't been, he's running, I feel like I've seen him up front a little bit last week, but I think I'm putting Bell in. I kind of looked over him, yeah. So kind of the top three in points right there right now: Larson, Bell, Reddick, and Hamlin. I think that's going to be my 4.
Okay. So then, out of your 4, who's your champion? Who goes to Phoenix and gets it done?
If Bell's in the Final Four, it's Bell.
Oh man, that's exactly what I'm thinking too.
I originally picked Hamlin as a champion beginning of the year, so. But Bell is so strong there.
Yeah. I agree that if Bell's there and he doesn't blow a brake rotor again, that he is probably going to be the guy that wins you the championship there. I can't wait to see how wrong that is as we go through these next 10 weeks and who gets eliminated. That's going to be interesting to see. Again, these are just initial reactions to what we've seen so far all season. The playoffs is like its own season in itself, so things can rapidly and dramatically change at that point. Are there any things that come to your mind throughout the year of like butterfly effect things? I don't know if that's the right term for it, but if this had just happened a little bit differently, you'd have a totally different perspective on this season, or even certain guys would have a totally different opportunity to be in the playoffs.
Well, obviously you got those real close finishes and
True.
stuff. I mean, you had Christopher Buescher.
Yeah.
Chris Buescher. I'm turning into Dale. Chris Buescher and Kyle Busch, both on the edge of making the playoffs that last race. Mm-hmm. And both of them lost by thousandths of a second in races. So that's the only real intriguing thing that comes to mind right now. I'm sure if I really looked in depth and saw everything that went on, and I could find more. But
I have 3 things that come to my mind. One being that close finish at Kansas. Chris Buescher having the opportunity there. The other one being Tyler Reddick taking out Chris Buescher at Darlington. That was a solid opportunity for him to win. Kyle Larson could have ridiculous amounts of playoff points right now had he finished out some of those races.
Yeah.
What was the one that was? I guess the fact of Kyle Busch had quite a few opportunities that he was really close to winning races as well. Big wrecks at plate tracks, things like that. Just where guys were so close. Brad Keselowski almost won at Talladega before Tyler Reddick did, just because he got wrecked.
Yeah.
He could have had a second opportunity to win there, and then there's just a whole bunch of things like that could have fallen into place to give them opportunities to win. Should Joey Logano run out of fuel? He's not in the playoffs. We talked about that. Speaking of that, we talked earlier in the year about how long it took Ford to get a win, and right now they have got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Yeah, someone said they had the most cars in the playoffs. So
that's 6 of 16 right there that are Fords. So that's a lot of cars for a manufacturer that really struggled to win early on in the season. They kind of came on pretty strong there at the end.
Yeah. Going back to Kyle Busch, it was there was a stat. He talked in his interview about how he goes, how many times I finished second or third in this next gen car.
Yeah.
And evidently 14 times he's finished second or third.
Wow, that's a lot.
And it's with the whole next gen the last 3 years totals. But I mean, a few of those turn into wins. You're in championship.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I guess if we're going to move on from the playoff conversation, we could talk about we shouldn't skip over the Xfinity Series race. I didn't have an opportunity to watch the Xfinity Series race. I know you said you didn't either. I know that Christopher Bell won it. I'm sure that was a good confidence boost for him. I'm just going to look at the finishing order here real quick, if I can get it to load. Chris Bell, Cole Custer, Sheldon Creed, Chase Elliott. Didn't realize he was in that race.
Yeah, I didn't know either until after.
Sammy Smith, Jesse Love, Shane Van Gisbergen. He's having some pretty good finishes here in the playoffs. Yeah. They're not in their playoffs yet, though.
No.
Okay, so he's having some pretty good finishes leading up to the playoffs. Chandler Smith, Austin Hill, Justin Allgaier rounds out the top 10. So the usual suspects. Ross Chastain was also in that race. Carson Kvapil, Noah Gragson was in that race. Some other guys like that. But yeah, I don't really have a whole lot to add to what took place there. We'll get a little more involved in the Xfinity Series when we get to the playoffs. I really wish that these all lined up. I've said this before.
Yeah.
Moving on to the news of the week. I think the only thing that was really noteworthy that I had was the fact that the schedule dropped for 2025. Seems like that takes forever for that to come out. They're going to be racing in Mexico City. But nothing really grabbed me out of that as far as nothing shocked me or really surprised me. We knew about the Mexico City thing. Like, it had been rumored for a long time now.
Yeah.
Did you have any thoughts or opinions on the schedule? Anything jumped out at you?
Nothing really jumped out at me other than I don't remember if they put Talladega in the final round of the playoffs. The final three.
But see, that I had an issue with that right off the bat. Dale Jr. talked me out of it because he said that Andrew Curlin made the argument, well, you could have a surprise winner at Talladega.
Yeah.
And he said, well, so what? If somebody, a no-namer wins, it's not like they win their way into the final round unless they're already in the round of 8.
Yeah, I see that.
So it's like, well, that's a fair point.
I guess it could only be if let's say someone's eked their way into the final 8 somehow, then they won Talladega, and boom.
That's a lot of luck happening at one time, though, to barely get in the round of 8 and win at Talladega.
Yeah.
And so what? They still got to go to Phoenix and win.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I guess I was a little irritated by that at first, but then I got talked off the ledge a little bit. So thank you, Dale Jr., for that one.
Also, I think I saw today Brandon Jones is going back to Joe Gibbs.
Yeah, I heard that too.
So that's another news thing that I could think of. So,
you got anything else to add to that? Any other news?
That's all
I didn't have anything major this week any stories that really got my attention. Yeah. The only other thing, I guess we'll close out the show with this. The only other thing that made me think a little bit, where do you think Bubba Wallace is in the whole scheme of 23XI? Do you think they still believe in him as a race car driver?
I think so.
Do you still believe in him as a race car driver?
I see potential in him.
You got Tyler Reddick that came over here 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And has now won the regular season championship. He's won 4 or 5 races?
Probably
something like that.
Yeah.
In the 23XI cars. And, I mean, people are saying he's almost a lock to go to the Final Four. I'm not saying that because I left him out of there. But people are saying that. And he's got a ton of playoff points. He's got this many wins, way more than Bubba has. And Bubba doesn't even make the playoffs. Do you think that that's got to mess with him at all?
Oh, I definitely. I mean, we don't know Bubba's, I don't know what you call it, his personality or whatever. He probably definitely sees that and thinks that, I mean, he probably should be in the playoffs. I saw a stretch where they got fairly hot. I mean, they were getting top 10s out of their races late. They just kind of took them too long to get there. I mean, he led a lot of the race in the beginning from the pole, of course. And, I mean, he finished top 5 in at least the first stage and maybe just outside the top 5 in the second stage. So he's running top 10 at Darlington. I mean, to me, he's a competitive driver.
Yeah.
I mean, I just think Tyler Reddick is an exceptional talent. You look at Kyle Larson, what he's doing makes his other teammates look slow.
That's true.
So, I mean, I don't see Bubba as a top-tier driver per se, but I believe he can pull off a win here and there and get top 5, top 10s.
Yeah.
That's what I see out of him, and he's definitely far better than, I would say, half the field that's out there.
Yeah, I think if he could just quit his whining and go after race wins and not worry so much about points and all that stuff and just try to win races. That's what Denny does, is just try to win races. Sometimes he ends up on the bad side of the strategy and doesn't end up getting good finishes, but more often than not, it works for him. And I just feel like if there was a little shift in mindset, a little more belief in himself that, hey, you're in really fast race cars. You can do this.
Yeah.
I mean, you put me in a fast race car, I'm probably going to get you something better than you put me in a slow race car. So I think he's got opportunities. I do agree that he's still got potential there. I think their 23XI is a long ways from giving up on him.
Oh, yeah.
But I don't know if fans are or not, and I didn't know where you stood on that.
Yeah.
And kind of on that same note, how do you feel about Chase Briscoe now? I mean, he won this race in a team that's shutting down, a team that doesn't have manufacturer support. Do you feel like he deserves some more hype going into that 19 car next year, or do you?
Definitely. I think
Really?
so. Yeah. I mean, obviously he was leading the Ford or the SHR camp at that point. Earlier in the year, I thought Noah Gragson was doing a good job, but he seemed to fall off a cliff and whatnot. Briscoe has been the steady one over there. Obviously, they're still struggling, but if you can win at a place like Darlington, well, I say that about Eric Jones too, because we thought, win at a place like Darlington, so you can't really say that too much. But
I don't know. I think that he's still driving junk race cars.
Oh, true. So is Eric Jones probably.
No, that's what I mean. I think that I don't think
Yeah.
you can say Eric Jones isn't good just because he is driving junk race cars.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. It didn't really change my opinion of Chase Briscoe that much. I think that he's a good race car driver. I think he'll compete for wins, but I don't know if he's like somebody I'm going to say, yeah, look out for him in the playoffs next year. But I don't know. That's my thoughts on Darlington. That's my thoughts on the playoffs. Do you got anything else you want to add to that?
That's all I got.
That's all I got too. So we're going to go ahead and look forward to Atlanta, see what that type of semi-plate racing drafting track type situation is, and see what comes out on top there. Maybe we have another really close finish like we did in the spring, and we'll see where things stack up after Atlanta.